لكم وحصلتوا عليه، الله يوفقكم.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Lebanese authorities agreed to boost security measures ahead of the Easter holiday and the summer season. Speaker Nabih Berri says the convention of the parliament to elect a new president will not prevent it from carrying out its legislative work. And talks between the United States, the European Union, Russia and Ukraine kick off in Geneva in an attempt to solve the Ukrainian crisis. Lebanese authorities have agreed to beef up security ahead of the Easter holiday and the summer season. President Michel Sleiman has held a security meeting at Babda Palace in the presence of Prime Minister Tamam Slam, Minister of Defense Salim Muqbil, and Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnouk, in addition to several security and military chiefs. During the meeting, Sleiman and Salam have hailed the security plans implemented in Tripoli and the eastern Bekaa Valley. Reports say they have agreed to intensify security measures, mainly near places of worship during the holidays, to avoid terrorist plots. They have also agreed to boost security on the streets, including the airport highway, with more police and army troops. The remote border village of Al Tufail and its residents' miserable living conditions was also discussed during the meeting, and the officials agreed to coordinate efforts in a bid to open the roads to and from the isolated village. Speaker Nabih Berri says the convention of the parliament to elect a new president will not prevent it from carrying out its legislative work. Berri's remarks came amid arguments that when the parliament convenes to elect a new president, it will no longer be a legislative assembly as stipulated in the Article 75 of the Lebanese Constitution. Article 75 reads, and I quote, "The chamber meeting to elect the President of the Republic shall be considered an electoral body and not a legislative assembly. It must proceed immediately without discussion of any other act to elect the head of state." Lebanon's parliament is to convene on April the 23rd to elect a new president to succeed Michel Sleiman, whose term ends on May the 25th. Kataib Party leader Amin Gemayel has informed his allies that he will officially announce his candidacy for the presidency. This is according to the party's officials, who say Gemayel, a former president, has informed the March 14 coalition that he will make the announcement by the end of this week. Kataib MP Eli Marouni told Voice of Lebanon Radio that his party believes Gemayel could be a strong president. For his part, Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat has refused to reveal the name of his candidate to the presidency, a day after Speaker Nabih Berri called for a session to elect a new head of state. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jarja is the sole politician to have officially announced his candidacy for the polls so far. Maronite Patriarch Shara has called on Lebanese authorities to speed up trials of detainees, improve prison conditions and issue amnesties for the elderly and the sick. Rai called for the establishment of a joint body by the relevant ministries to oversee prisons and urged for the separation of inmates. He also underlined the need to classify prisoners based on their crime. These remarks came during his visit to Rumi prison north of Beirut to mark Holy Thursday. Rai celebrated the event by washing the feet of the inmates. The Israeli army has kidnapped 5 Lebanese, including 2 women and a child, from Lebanese territories in the south. The national news agency says the kidnapping occurred in the farm of Bastada after a unit crossed the technical fence. The 2 women and the child were later released. The Lebanese army and the United Nations interim force in Lebanon are working to secure the freedom of the 2 men. An estimated 25% of Syrian refugee children in Jordan are not enrolled in schools. Some refugees' teachers have taken the initiative to educate their own children. Jamal Shahade opened a school at a refugee settlement near Amman, where all the residents are Bedouin relatives. More in this report.
يلا يا ريهام يلا يلا تعالي على المدرسة.
Jamal Ahmed Shahade loves teaching children, but when he fled to Jordan, that ended, until a few months ago. He founded the first school for Syrian refugee children in this settlement near Amman.
لاحظت إنه الأولاد كل نهار يلعبوا بالشوارع، بيروحوا في هون سوق خضار، بيروحوا عليه بيشوف إنه حرام. هدول الأولاد يعني عمره 7 سنوات وهي لازم يتعلموا، ففكرت إنه لازم نعمل شيء يعني تواصلت معك أكثر من عائلة، قلت لهم حرام هدول الأولاد إنه يعني تتفاهموا بيناتكم بحيث إنه إحنا نأسس مدرسة.
There are 45 students from the 1st grade to the 6th. The day starts with a math lesson.
مين يطلع يحل لي التمرين هذا؟ سهل جدا. تعال يا راجل.
4 زائد 3 7.
7
ناقص 2 6.
7 ناقص 2
يساوي
5.
زائد 1 يساوي 6.
أحسنت، برافو، صفوا له. يلا. طيب.
Mohammed is 12 years old. He came here with his family 4 months ago. Jamal is not only his teacher, but his role model.
بعلم الأطفال اللي ما درسوا بسوريا بعلمهم هون أحسن ما بيتموا بدون تعليم ولا شغلة. بعلم هون بسوي، بعلم هون الكتابة وبعلم هون القراية أحسن ما بيروحوا بيلعبوا وما بيعرفوا يكتبوا ولا بيقرأوا.
Like Mohammed, many of the children here want to be school teachers. 10-year-old Hala is determined to give language lessons when she grows up.
تفاح بالعربي نقول أبل، أو مردغان أورنج مثلا، وباص بالعربي بص، ودير غزالة، صح؟
The camp hosts around 100 families, all from one of Hama's rural villages, and all part of a large extended family. But Jamal is about to hand over the school to his cousin Akram, also a teacher. Akram has plans for the school.
إذا ممكن يعني إذا بالإمكانيات المتواضعة، يعني هذا أدنى طلب، نعمل خيمة ثانية مثل هي الخيمة، كمان نعمل خيمة ثانية مشان نستوعب أكبر عدد من التلاميذ اللي ما عم يجوا على المدرسة، لأنه المكان ما بيتسع. وتعرف أنت الأولاد بيصير ضدي وبيصير كذا، إن المكان ما عم يتسع، لذلك نطلب إنه نسوي خيمة ثانية ونعلم، ومعلم آخر كمان يعلم فيها.
Jamal's passion will not be forgotten, nor his legacy. He's leaving for Europe with his wife and daughter.
السلام عليكم.
With the help of UNHCR, the family has been chosen for resettlement in Austria. Some of the hope he gave to others has now come to him.
Coming up next, Algerians are casting their votes in presidential elections. More details after the break. Welcome back. Ukrainian troops have repelled an overnight attack on their port base in the southeast city of Mariupol, killing 3 of the assailants and wounding 13 others. Arsen Avakov, the country's interior minister, says about 300 people mounted the attack using guns and patrol bombs against interior ministry troops, none of whom was hurt. After the attack continued, they turned their weapons directly on the assailants. 63 people were detained and security officials confiscated weapons, communication devices and Russian cell phones. The latest attack follows the seizure of administrative buildings by pro-Russian separatists in Mariupol and other towns across the restive east of the country. Meanwhile, 4-way talks between Ukraine, Russia, the United States and the European Union to end the crisis in Ukraine have begun in the Swiss capital of Geneva. The Ukrainian foreign minister attended the meeting along with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton were also present at the city's Intercontinental Hotel. Kiev and the West believe Moscow is stirring up unrest in eastern Ukraine, with Washington pressuring Russian leaders to de-escalate the crisis. Russia has brushed off the criticism and accused Ukraine of stoking the situation and risking mass bloodshed by using its military to try to crush the rebellion in the largely Russian-speaking East. Washington and the EU have also expressed concern about the 40,000 Russian troops that NATO says are assembled near the Ukrainian frontier. U.S. officials in Washington say they believe more sanctions will be imposed against Russia if there is no progress made. Algerians are casting their votes in presidential elections that are likely to lead to Abdelaziz Bouteflika's fourth mandate, despite calls for a boycott with the opposition warning of rigged results. More than 260,000 police have been deployed to protect the 50,000 polling booths opening across the country today, where 23 million Algerians are eligible to vote in a contest between 6 candidates. Bouteflika, who is seeking to extend his 15-year rule but despite chronic health problems, is the firm favorite. He has appeared only rarely on television in recent months, looking frail after suffering a mini-stroke last year, which confined him to hospital in France for 3 months. But with opposition parties and youth activists loudly calling on Algerians to snub the poll and many questioning his ability to rule, Bouteflika faces the risk of a damaging low turnout. And now for news around the world in brief. A 19-year-old Canadian has become the first person arrested for theft of information related to the heartbleed bug, a defect that allows hackers to bypass internet encryption code. Federal police in Canada say they have arrested and charged Stephen Arturo Solis Reyes over the theft of 900 Canadian taxpayers' data, which was made vulnerable by the heartbleed bug. Solis Reyes was arrested at his London, Ontario home and is scheduled to reappear in court today. Millions of voters are casting their ballots in India's biggest day of general election, with a quarter of the 815 million-strong electorate eligible to vote in 121 constituencies across 12 states. Today's parliamentary exercise will cross the halfway mark, with voting underway in the country's politically important states. Malaysia's acting Transport Minister Hishamuddin Hussein says the search for the missing jetliner will be continued and intensified over the weekend. Hussein, who is also Malaysia's defense minister, says the investigation will focus on the area where a series of pings were recorded earlier this month. Relatives of hundreds of people missing in a ferry sinking in South Korea are demanding answers about their loved ones as rescuers continue to scour the wreckage for signs of life. Authorities have confirmed 9 people had died and 288 passengers still missing, a day after the Sewol ferry flipped on its side off the southern coast of South Korea. The ferry was carrying a total of 475 people when it sank. Passengers rescued received treatment in hospital, along with distraught family members of those who died. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Lebanese authorities agree to boost security measures ahead of the Easter holiday and the summer season. Speaker Nabih Berri says the convention of the parliament to elect a new president will not prevent it from carrying out its legislative work. And talks between the United States, the European Union, Russia and Ukraine kick off in Geneva in an attempt to solve the Ukrainian crisis. Those are today's headlines from us here at Future Television. Catch Yumna Naufal again tomorrow for more of the world's top stories.
هيدا حقكم وحصلتوا عليه، الله يوفقكم.